Hello, I've made a video recently about the different metal components of anodes, such as magnesium, aluminum, and zinc. But in this video, we're going to talk about the differences between specific stern drives to help you identify what kind of drive you have. So, as an example, on an Alpha One inboard engine, like a MerCruiser, you've got significant differences between the first generation series and the second generation series. And not everybody knows if they've got Gen 1s or Gen 2s, what year they have. And so without getting into all those details, I'm going to show you a visual way to identify whether you have a Gen 2 series or a Gen 1, and that is easily identifiable through the series of anodes you have on there. So if we look, and I've shown here the two specific models, the Gen 1 series and the Gen 2 series. And by looking at the anodes you have on your drive units, you'll easily be able to tell which generation you have. So let's take a look at these. When we're looking at a Gen 1, so the older series, usually 1993 and older, on the gimbal ring, which is attached to the transom in the back, you'll find these little bullet style anodes that are actually just screwed on to the tip of the stud that's protruding out the back. Next, you have this block here. Now, this block here repeats itself, as you can see, so it's not a good standard to determine the generation, but I will tell you nonetheless where it goes. Completely underneath the drive units, and I mean behind the unit, underneath, you usually have to completely get underneath the boat to see it, where the trim lines come in and join, the hydraulic trim lines to lift up and down the foot, and they join in, that's where that block is. So that one is not a good identifier, but this one is. Now, as you can see in this case, its equivalent in the Gen 2 series are actually horseshoes that go on each side of the trim cylinder. So these ones here are on the trim cylinder, these ones here are on the gimbal ring at the back. Now, next, we have the one above the propeller. But that one here is a little tricky because once it has a fin, the Gen 2 does not have a fin. But oftentimes, these are replaced with the flat ones because they're interchangeable, because you might have a stainless steel prop or a large diameter prop, which would actually nick and hit the trim tab anode here. So it is not a good standard to determine which generation you have. So, although the Gen 1 series comes standard with the one with the fin, and the Gen 2 comes without, you may have, years ago, or someone else, a previous owner, may have replaced it for the flat one. So it goes back to, this one here is the easy identifier. If you've got the trim cylinder type horseshoe, you've got a newer series generation, Alpha One, and if you've got these bullets here, then you've got the previous generation. Now, lastly, the first generation does not have the one at the tip of the drive unit. So at the bottom drive unit, you have a plate, and this one lies on top of it. So the Gen 2 series has that. It also has this additional anode, which you can only see when you remove the propeller. So that one too is a good identifier. The Gen 1 series did not have that anode, whereby the Gen 2 behind, and you have to remove the propeller to replace it, you've got one right here. So that's what makes the difference between a Gen 1 Alpha and a Gen 2 Alpha. So I hope that helps. Now, trim tab anodes. Trim tab anodes, I'll get to the Bravo series in a moment, but since I've got them here on my table, I'll show you the trim tab anodes. Trim tab anodes, they all work actually, but some of them are larger than others. So normally you do a standard progression as you get a larger boat and a larger trim tab plane on each side of the boat, you would have a larger matching anode. But any which one of these will fit for a trim tab. And the way they work is like they're like an actual flying saucer, and so you separate them. This one will go on the underside of the trim tab, this one will go on top, or vice versa. It doesn't matter, you can reverse them. And so they just squeeze together and squish up against the trim tab anodes, and that's how these work. You've got a number of different anodes. We have walls full of different anodes, and your boat might have completely different anodes, and that's fine. We have the anodes for you, shaft anodes, inboard anodes. We've got large types, and these are but a sample and a small percentage of all the different types of anodes that exist out there. So contact us for details. Now lastly, I want to show you the Bravo series. Now Bravos have 3 types of drive units: the Bravo 1, the Bravo 2, and the Bravo 3. Now the Bravo 1 is a standard type of anode, and they don't have an actual generation. The Bravo 2s and 3s do. Actually, the Bravo 3s do. The Bravos 2 do not. So let's take a look. So in these kits, you've got Bravo 3s, but you've got 2003, or rather 2004 to present, and before 2004. Now, what makes the difference between each? Let's take a look. So you've got the plate, the cavitation plate in the front that lies on top, different than an Alpha. It's a larger plate with holes. And you've got the anodes for the trim tab on each side of the trim cylinder. And if you look at these generations, they're identical. So that's not a good identifier. There it is. And underneath in this package, it's hidden away there. These trim tab anodes are here as well. And you've got that propeller anode, the trim tab, is there. It's a flat series. Now, spot the difference. You'll notice that on the 2004 to today, they've got 2 of them, one right in front of each other. So if you look right above the propeller underneath, you'll see 2 of them. The previous versions, the old ones, 2003 and older, will have a single trim tab anode saucer. The newer ones have this. So that's how it's easy to identify a newer series Bravo 3. A propeller cone anode also. This one does not include it. So with that, I hope that helps, and I hope it helps identify which type of drive unit if you are actually questioning yourself about it. Thank you.